On this AVNation special, we preview DSE, talking with Spence Graham from West Virginia University about how digital signage and emergency notification work together. All that and more next on this AVNation special.
The network for the AV industry.
What are you listening to?
This
is AV.
This
is AVNation.
This is AVNation.
AVNation is brought to you by our fine group of underwriters, companies like Kramer Electronics, AV Beyond the Box. This is an AVNation special, recorded Friday, February 17th, 2017. Digital signage and emergency notification. This is an AVNation special. My name is Tim Albright. I am your host. We are going to Digital Signage Expo the end of March 2017. Beautiful Las Vegas, Nevada. We've talked with Andrea Verone and a number of other folks. This time, though, we're going to talk with one of the instructors, Spence Graham from West Virginia University. He's going to be doing a presentation, but he's also works at a college dealing with their digital signage. So first, Spence, welcome, sir.
Thank you, Tim. Glad to be here. Appreciate it.
Absolutely. Let's start with not just your class. We'll get to that in a second. As somebody, I'm going to say a technology manager, because that's kind of in the AV world, and you know, our audience integrators, kind of how they position you in the world, IT and technology manager. As a technology manager, why do you attend DSE besides the fact that you're teaching a class?
Well, we've attended DSE for many years. In fact, we started our network here at West Virginia University literally as those horrible events were playing out on the Virginia Tech campus. And we were tasked with, they had been talking about digital signage for a while, but there was obviously a communication breakdown during that event. And so this is the impetus that we started our network 8 years ago. And we started off at one of the very first DSEs to do our research and development there for our network. And we were tasked, I could hire one person. I was tasked to have 10 signs in by Christmas. That was in mid-April.
Oh, wow.
And that it better have an emergency messaging feature. So we were able to meet that goal, and we started with 10. We now have over 150 in all sorts of different flavors and sizes, and all three campuses here in Morgantown. And we're getting ready to cast the network to our regional campuses all across the state. So Digital Signage Expo has been an annual event for us because, number one, you've got everything you need right there in your lap for those few days. And to us, it's a major part of our research and development as we're bringing on new technologies just about every year. We have, we're doing not only standard digital signage, but now wayfinding and room signage and walls of honor, donor recognition walls, research walls, video walls. So for us, you're able to talk to the people that make the software, that make the mounting solutions, that make the monitors, that have the content management systems. And it's fantastic. We would never miss it. I've been fortunate. I've worked with them for a number of years. I've served on the DSE advisory board for the End User Council. And as an end user, we find DSE absolutely a no-brainer that we go every year. We do what we can to be there. I take my whole team with us as we go. I also serve as the vice chairman for the Digital Signage Federation. And of course, the DSF and DSE work hand in hand together. And so we can't imagine not being at DSE simply because we get so much information there in that short period of time.
You mentioned the fact that you've got over 100, I think I said 115 displays.
150.
150. Mm-hmm. How do you manage that breadth of displays with all different, like you said, flavors and styles?
Well, I will say this. When we started, at that time, digital signage was really in its infancy as an industry even. Yeah. And so there were only a handful of people that made monitors, a handful of people that had content management systems, that sort of thing. So Fortunately, when we started, I was managing the was called the Interactive Video Network, which was we tied electronic classrooms together here in Morgantown all across the state for that. And so we were tasked with digital signage, which we didn't even know about at the time. But fortunately, I was with some fantastic engineers in the television productions department there. And so we sat down there before we even bought the first piece of equipment. And we sat down with the engineers and we said, okay, this is what we have to do. So we had planning that was just superb for us there. It made my life so much easier. And we tried to figure out how to walk before we, or crawl before we walked and walk before we ran. And we phased everything over a period of years to get to where we are now. So proper planning was the key. And then also the key hires that we made. There's three of us that run the network. I have one IT person and I have a designer. Now I can access other designers within our division. We're in university relations, and so that's the messaging and marketing arm of the university. So there is web services, there's creative services, there's trademark and licensing, television productions, video, all that. So kind of finding where those resources are available already existing on campus has been one of our best successes. Is that way we're not having to reinvent the wheel constantly. If someone's already designing something for a major thrust, we're celebrating our 150th birthday as a university this year. So
wow.
We're utilizing some of those design elements from other projects to also use them on digital signage. And so it really is a great benefit to us of being able to know where those resources already exist, so that you're being much more cost effective doing it that way.
Well, and you're able to use the entire breadth of your university, right? All the resources that you have, not just in one little department, not little department, but one department.
Well, and we have about, I think it's about 25 site-specific loops of information constantly playing. In other words, what's playing at the College of Business and Economics is not playing necessarily at the College of Engineering, and vice versa there. So we're able to tailor that internal marketing messaging to specific colleges, departments within the university community, student organizations. We have over 400 student organizations that have access to our network and can promote their events and things like that. So we're able to really specifically cast really targeted internal marketing messaging to the audiences on our campus. We have over 45,000 people a day on our campuses. So, getting specific messaging to specific audiences has really added value to the network. And we don't have trouble growing the network. Our challenge is to throttle that growth to where we don't get too far over our skis, and grow too fast.
Well, here's the thing. I can imagine that folks that aren't necessarily served currently by your network would be chomping at the bit, saying, hey, raising their hand, saying, hey, us over here.
Absolutely. And what we've actually seen is that almost becomes a defensive strategy for these deans and department heads, because if they say, did you see what B&E did over there with their digital, we got to, how do we get that? And believe it or not, that's how, standard digital signage is one thing, but one of the fastest growing things that we've seen here in the last year or two has been walls of honor and donor recognition walls. The reason being is these deans and these department heads say, look at all these brass plaques all over the place. There's no continuity to them. They're very expensive. For the price of 3 brass plaques, I could put in a digital signage and put all of them on this one digital sign. So what I'm saying is we look for those economies of scale as we're doing our research and development. And now we certainly know what vendors to go out there and look for equipment mounting solutions and content management. But anytime you're doing things like walls of honor, donor recognition, wayfinding, and room signage, there's a database that's set behind everything. And so that is the most important part of those types of projects if your data's no good, you're not going to have very good digital signage. And so we spend much more time on the data side of getting the client to provide, and they have to provide that data.
Yeah.
We'll get it up there for them, but that's the big challenge there with that kind of signage too.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's talk about your class. You're going to be speaking at
Yes.
Digital Signage Expo Wednesday morning at 8:00. It's a breakfast keynote, so you have breakfast served. You're going to be talking about the title of it is Emergency Alerts: Failure is Not an Option.
That's right.
And you spoke earlier about how you got involved in digital signage, and it was unfortunately out of the aftermath of Virginia Tech. Talk for a second, not necessarily about specifically about your class and what someone's going to learn as they're sitting there, but also about the importance of emergency notification in the digital signage realm.
Well, of course, I've written a number of articles and presented on emergency messaging over the years, not only at DSC, but at some other conferences as well. But the reason I came up with the emergency alert, failure is not an option. Gene Kranz, who was the famous mission control guy there for Apollo 13, is the one that came up with failure is not an option. And he actually wrote a book by that title. But in that book, he had a great quote that I never forgot, and that is, know what you don't know. And when you're dealing with emergency alerts, I always say that evil people do their evil deeds at evil times of the day and night. You don't get to pick and choose the time of your next crisis. You have to be ready. And so proper planning, we're going to be talking about, and this is just the way WVU does it. It's not the only way, but we have a very specific. In fact, just before we got on here, we had an emergency alert test here that I was involved with, and we test on a quarterly basis because your campuses change students every semester, and so we have to kind of raise awareness that we do have an emergency messaging, and this is one of the ways we raise that awareness. Once a quarter, we put out a test alert so that everybody understands. We make sure that all the systems work, because with our emergency system, it issues not only in under 10 seconds, it triggers our digital signage to go into alert status. It issues an email, and it issues a text alert. So it's a three-pronged alert process. Now, there's a lot of people behind the scenes on that, and there is a committee of us, there's probably 20 some of us that are involved with that make sure on a quarterly basis everything works. Because you know networks like I do, you change a switch and all of a sudden something doesn't work, or something fails that you didn't know 3 months ago. So regular testing is one thing there, but also the dynamic of what is going on once that button is pushed. Who pushes that button? What determines whether the button is pushed? When do you push it another time to update that message so that somebody isn't co-opting your message? That's one of the other things that I follow just about any alert that's issued on any college campus. And what happens is, if they don't update that alert until the alert is over, somebody co-ops their message on Twitter or something like that. So, I mean, it's those little things that a lot of times you don't think about until you're in the midst of a crisis and say, oh man, we need to get out some new information here, because the students are sitting there saying stuff that it's really not, or somebody clear across the country is starting to jump into that conversation.
Or news organizations, start getting that.
That's right. And so part of this emergency alert team includes our news and information people, so that they are currently updating that messaging out there to let people know, okay, if we're supposed to be sheltering in place, update them every few minutes there so that they know to stay tight there until it's all clear. So, it's those little things that you sometimes don't think about. It's one thing to alert, it's another thing to manage that alert, and while the people that are managing the crisis itself are doing their jobs. So we're going to be talking about a lot of those things in that, getting some ideas. But the big thing is I always encourage people to ask questions. Again, we're not the only way to do it, but we have spent a lot of time trying to figure out what does work and what doesn't work as well. So, we're going to share some of those things, Tim.
Well, and one of the things is, and you said this earlier that WVU, you guys have one way to do it. It may not work exactly right. It's not a cookie cutter.
No.
But you've got the depth of experience to say, this is how we do it, and this is kind of why it works for our campus. Your campus and the politics of your campus or the funding of your campus may be different, but they can at least take away, the core principles of how you guys have developed.
That's exactly right, because the way we do it, we have a very robust content management system. Now, our content management system does not trigger the alert. It triggers our signs. What triggers the alert is another content management system that the WVU Police Department manage that issues that alert feed. We're constantly, several times a minute, looking for a specific feed and specific wording. If it sees that, our system automatically switches over in under 10 seconds as soon as it sees that. So what I'm saying is not all campuses are going to have multiple content management systems and software systems integrated like we have to talk to each other. Some may just have very basic types of stuff, but still emergency messaging is emergency messaging. Yeah. It's a question of, okay, this is how one group does it. How would we do it? And those are the types of questions that I love entertaining, is that, well, tell me a little bit about your system there. Have you thought about this, or have you thought about that? So we're gonna have some fun with that. And it's always, like I say, I've done sessions on emergency messaging before at other conferences, and there's always a good conversation that goes on with that, because there's so many different iterations of emergency messaging on any given campus.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And there are folks that are in different life cycle, different stages of the life cycle, right? That
yeah, absolutely. And it also has a lot to do with budgets too. Yeah. Because I mean, you can run the gamut from free to very expensive just on a content management system. And a lot of times you get what you pay for, but you take what you have and let's figure out how we can make that work. Because again, the last thing you want to do is have a situation to where somebody the day after a crisis says, how come so-and-so didn't get alerted?
Yeah.
Those are tough questions to answer right there, especially if it was in front of a judge and jury.
Well, and the other thing is not to be put too fine a point on it. You mentioned judge and jury. In some states, there are legal ramifications, right? There are laws that have been put in place because of situations like Virginia Tech and others as well. Yeah. Not to you're talking for 1 hour during that week, but you're also going to be attending, obviously.
That's correct.
So what's one or two things that you're hoping to take away from either the show floor or maybe some other education?
Well, I'll be very busy that week. I not only will our team be looking at anything that's new there, and that is great. I mean, there are so many different vendors there, especially some of the newer ones there. You just never know what's coming down the pipe that you say, oh, that's cool. I wonder if we can pull that off, And so we're going to be looking for things like that. But we also touch base with our main vendors that we use for our monitors, for our mounting solutions, for our content management systems there. But the great thing is that if you go, I guarantee you that we get 10 times the value of what it costs us to go out of it. The reason being is we're talking to the people that built it. We're talking to the people that designed it. And we can take our specific challenges or problems to them and say, this is what we're wanting to do. Okay. How can we make this happen there? Or we can sit there and say, we're really running our head against a wall on this particular challenge there. Is there something we need to do different? So just that kind of thing. Plus, I get to talk to other people in the higher ed vertical market that, to find out what other people are doing. It allows us to network a little bit with each other there and learn what's going on in different places there. As I said, I'm also involved with the Digital Signage Federation, so I'll be spending some time at that booth there, helping people get connected. That's one of the nice things about the Digital Signage Federation, and why I got involved with them was they were the ones that basically were helping handhold me to go out there and say, okay, when I needed something, they're saying, oh, that's easy. You just need to talk to this person. So we're kind of paying it forward in doing that. We'll also be doing some vertical market in higher education, session types of get-togethers there, where we'll sit down there and other people in higher ed will come in there and say, we're thinking about doing this. What should we be looking for? And so again, we'll be taking advantage of some great networking opportunities as well there that week. So it's a fantastic opportunity for us.
The other thing, and this is from a manufacturer standpoint. Obviously, they could probably call Andrea today and probably not have a space, but for the next year, if you are in that space, being able to talk to folks like you, and I've heard more often than not where they take away ideas for like their next product or their next iteration.
Yeah, we wear our content management system people out because, we're coming up with these ideas and they're saying, well, we just don't have that. And we're sitting there saying, well, why not? This is what we need. So it is a two-way conversation very much. And I will say this, AVNation and the Digital Signage Expo folks have been fantastic friends of ours, because anytime I have a question, and it's just not me, it's anybody, should feel like they can reach out and they will get the answers they need. These folks are great. It's a fantastic, I've been to a lot of shows, but very, very, very few would go to the extent that Andrea Verone and AVNation does with putting on Digital Signage Expo. It's just a great experience.
All right. Well, if you are interested in hearing Spence talk a little bit more about emergency notification, his class is on that March 29th at 8:00. The title of it is Emergency Alerts: Failure is Not an Option. Spence, if people are interested in connecting with you or want to pick your brain outside of this, how do they get a hold of you?
They can email me at Spencer, SPENCER .Graham, GRAHAM, at mail.wvu.edu, or they can call me at 304-293-0533, and I'll be glad to talk to anybody. We're always looking forward to making new friends and helping anybody that we can, and we certainly appreciate you, Tim, giving us this opportunity to promote the session there at DSE.
Yeah, absolutely. And I seriously, folks like you are invaluable, because like I said, there are several places people, different stages of this life, right? Where whether it's they're just now realizing or just now getting into digital signage, and I'm talking about tech managers as well as integrators, right? That need folks like yourself who have been through there.
Well, to tell you the truth, and this is the honest to God's truth, I'll never forget. I got that call. Literally, I had it up on about 15 different monitors in the television production studio, what was going on at Virginia Tech that morning. I get the call from the office of the president. They say, I'm going to give you some money. You can hire one person. I want 10 digital signs. I want them in by Christmas, and they better have an emergency messaging system. I said, yes, sir. Hung up the phone. I looked at one of my engineers, and I, honest to God, said, what's digital signage? Because we got to create it. Now, what I'm saying, that was over 8 years ago.
Yeah.
Okay. There are people to this day that are tasked with digital signage that were in the same similar thing as, okay, I got to do this, but what is it? Digital Signage Expo and the Digital Signage Federation, that's the place to go, because they'll get you up on the curve in a heartbeat. And they were so helpful to us. And so that's why we've been involved every year since.
No, I appreciate it. Spence Graham from West Virginia University. I appreciate it, sir. My name is Tim Albright. If you want to find out more about us or check out other stuff, you can go to our website, AVNation.tv. AVNation.tv, as I mentioned, we will be in Las Vegas, March 28th through the 31st, checking out everything. Hopefully, I'll be able to stop by Spence's class, but we'll also be doing what we do best at trade shows, which is talking to the manufacturers, content creators, and bringing them their story to you on our website. So AVNation.tv, AVNation.tv. Thanks so much for listening. Thanks so much for watching. This has been an AVNation special.